Mbweha. You can call me Ben. I'm Team Relentless, and this is the Playbook, where you can come to learn to do something very specific in Star Wars Legion, better than you did before, I hope. Today, we're talking about Fleet Troopers. Yup, those are the guys, and that's not an inaccurate depiction of what often happens to them, but we'll talk about all that and more, starting now. Fleets have been around for a very long time in Legion, and until very recently, they've taken a back seat to the other core options that Rebels have. However, thanks to a change to their original point cost and the advent of the Sacred Space Bus, they're hitting the table more and more now. So let's talk about how to use them. Number 1, let's get naked. Wait! No, this is not that kind of channel. For that kind of Team Relentless content, you gotta find Drod's OnlyFans page.
How pathetic.
So if you're late to the game, saying something is naked means that the unit has no upgrades or attachments on it at all. There are more than a few archetypal Rebel lists that pay a core tax of 3 naked units. Now that Rebel Troopers and Fleet Troopers both cost a measly 40 points, it's a pretty good idea to make one of these tax units a Fleet Trooper.
Taxes!
Typically, these naked core units just hide in the back and do objectives. But if your opponent tries to flank you and go after this 4 health, 1/3 save unit, it can be a little bit complicated to tangle with them because they can throw 8 white surge to hit out to range 2 and 4 black surge to hit in melee. Having ready 1 means that if they dodge and stand by, they'll also get that aim, making them even more of a headache for your opponent to try to deal with if they're disrupting your backfield. Number 2, Barrage loadout. Want to hear a funny story about Barrage Fleet Troopers? I rank them as the 5th most points efficient offensive core unit for Rebels, ahead of Z6 Rebel Troopers. Here's the rub. Blast is one of the most underappreciated keywords in Legion. If you find yourself usually firing into heavy cover, you should basically consider this 2 free hits to your attack pool. Whoa. And the fact that the MPL-57 Barrage Trooper also has impact too is just a fun added bonus, especially given the current armor heavy meta. If you play a Barrage Trooper build, you'll need to be very careful on your approach. You might do some range 3 flanking from time to time where you recover and then shoot again, but what you really want to be doing is that at range 2. So if I'm sitting here telling you how great Barrage Fleet Troopers are, what you should be asking is, why don't I see people run it more? Well, the answer is, number 3, Scatter loadout. Have you met my friend Pierce?
In a word, yes.
Close enough. Scatter fleets with a 5th trooper in them have the best range 1 or range 2 attack pool of all core units across all armies. And yes, you should be taking either the generic Fleet Trooper personnel or the Rebel Officer upgrade for the added courage to avoid being suppressed 100% of the time with these Scatter boys. 2 red, 10 white, surge to hit is going to produce 5 or more hits 76% of the time. Not to mention the fact that they have Pierce 1.
Beg your pardon? Forgot to knock.
And when you have just 1 aim, whew, boy, the odds are only 13% that you'll roll 4 or fewer hits. And it's nearly a 50% chance that you'll roll 7 or more hits. Not to mention Pierce 1. Number 4, getting aims. Having the opportunity to aim and shoot with Fleet Troopers is very rare, so you need to use other strategies to get the aims on them. The only ways to do this are with Electro Binoculars, Lando's 3-pip, or the Unorthodox Tactician. Let's look at all 3 options. Electro Binoculars are 8 points and can be attached to anything that has a gear slot. Typically, you'd only want to put it on something that has actions to spare, so maybe a Rebel Officer or somebody like Leia who's trying to stay out of the fray until the very end of the battle. Now this is probably the least synergistic way to get aims on Fleet Troopers, which is why you don't see it very often.
I'm not impressed!
Now with Lando, at first glance you might think that he has 2 command cards that are going to get aims to Fleet Troopers. However, his 2-pip Ace Up His Sleeve gives standby tokens and does not give a standby action to the unit that he orders, and so Ready 1 does not give them an aim. However, his 3-pip does hand out observation tokens like it's going out of style, which is just as good as an aim.
Much better.
But the best way to get aims to, well, anything right now is the unorthodox tactician in the space bus. It is a measly 10 points. On average, it gives 2 aims per turn, and it can give those aims to any units out to range 3 away from it. I can't imagine that that's not going to change in the near future, but that's what it is right now, at least at the time of shooting. But in addition to that, if you're going to run any sort of non-naked fleet trooper unit, you want to be bringing a bus anyway.
Way better, better, better. Way better, better, better.
Number 5, all aboard the speeder truck. Close transport is a hell of a drug, and it turns out that fleet troopers loaded up into a space bus is real good.
Magic bus!
Yeah, magic bus!
The AA5 speeder truck is going to keep the fleets safe on their approach as well as hand out aims at key moments. Let's take a look at the threat range of fleets in a space bus so we can best plan how to drop the kids off at summer camp, as it were. So first of all, remember that a transported unit only gets to take an action after it disembarks if the transport performed no more than 1 speed X move. So even if you have Reckless Driver on the bus, be sure not to do more than 1 total move on the turn that you're going to drop the fleets off. A single move from the bus moves at 9.4 inches, which is just over 1.5 range bands. The fleets get to make a 1-speed move when they disembark, plus they gain an extra inch from their base, so that's another 4.9 inches. Then of course they can pew out to range 2, which is 12 inches. So in a straight line, fleets in a bus have a threat range of just over 26 inches, or about 4.25 range bands. Accounting for some wiggle room, that means that you should be able to threaten pretty much anything that's within range 4. Oh, and also you might want to practice getting used to the fact that because the bus has reposition, it can start by pivoting and also gain some extra distance before it begins all of this movement. Or it could make its reposition at the end of the move and gain some extra lateral movement.
Start the bus, Otto! Start the bus!
Now because fleets are such a glass cannon type unit, you really want to pull off a last first with them. And then after that, assume that they are going to get wiped off the board. Yeah, like that. Bonus. Remember, if you're transporting fleets in a bus, that you want to be very intentional about the decision of when to release them. Holding them back until the mid or late game creates a lot of pressure on your opponent and can have a really big impact on certain objectives. Remember the importance of taking out of cover shots, especially with so many white dice. In fact, if you're finding yourself often rolling into heavy cover at range 1, you might consider spending 3 points so that one of the fleet troopers can toss a concussion grenade so that the attack has blast. Summary. Let's review. Number 1, a single unit of naked fleet troopers is excellent in a Cortax army. Number 2, the Barrage trooper is better than you think, but it is eclipsed by. Number 3, scatter loadout with a 5th trooper is real good. Number 4, use the unorthodox tactician and Orlando to make sure that your fleets have plenty of rerolls for all those white dice. And number 5, use a bus to keep your fleets safe on their approach to your opponent's army. Now you know how to use fleet troopers better than you did before. I hope. If you liked the video, please prove it and subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. I'm Mbweha, you can call me Ben of Team Relentless, and this has been the Playbook, Fleet Troopers.